Summertime is heating up in the sports world, getting ready for training camp with the Lions. Pistons wrapping up the draft, NHL draft wrapping up as well. But the big story right now in all of Detroit, and maybe all of baseball, are these Detroit Tigers. Welcome to DSP, and thank you for joining us. Along with Derek Hutchinson, I'm Hobie Artigue. And D, looking at this team right now, back to being number one in Major League Baseball, back to being at the top of the American League. To this point, I know we were talking earlier this year about how special this season could be. How special is it right now from your vantage point?
Yeah, they were kind of just treading water for a few weeks, right? Like they were winning 2 out of 3. They lost the series to the Nats, but then to go into Cleveland and not only sweep Cleveland, but kind of put the nail in their coffin, it felt like, at least in terms of the division race. That just got you right back to like that, the highest of highs that we've been all season.
And looking at what they were able to do on Sunday, because game 1 in Cleveland, it was really close. Game 2 was even closer than that. I mean, it was pretty close for the entire game on Sunday. It was 0-0 for pretty much the entire game. And then they got to the 9th inning and just came alive. I mean, that just shows you that this team can win in a variety of ways, because against the Nationals, they came out, scored a bunch of runs in that first game, and then it kind of fell off after that. But then to respond the way they did against a division rival, it's pretty special.
I think everybody kind of felt like it was 0-0 in the 8th, you know, and you're like, man, they kind of wasted this another vintage Skubal start. And then Cleveland scores, and you're like, oh, it's going to be a 1-0 final. To steal that one, especially scoring on a wild pitch and then just clubbing them in the 10th inning. I mean, that just, you could feel the life get sucked out of that stadium. And to the Tigers, it just proves, like, these guys are just never out of it. And the fact that it was Trey Sweeney, the guy who was just down in the minors, coming up and hitting the big 3-run homer, the first home run of his career off a fastball, it's just like, what else do you expect from these Tigers, man? It's just like somebody different every day.
It's just another like bullet point on what this season has been, because looking back, I mean, we were looking at Tarek Skubal's stats. You looked at the A's game whenever he gave up 4 earned runs, one of his worst performances of the year, and the offense picked him up for that game. And then so many times lately, he's been setting the tone for the offense whenever they can barely score runs, but then they came alive like they did on Sunday. Looking at the division right now, though, an AL pennant that's still a long ways away. But when you look at the division right now, this team is, let me be factually correct before making a statement. Right now, heading into the All-Star break, 6 games before the All-Star break, they are 13.5 games ahead of the Minnesota Twins.
You want to hear something
Usually
crazy?
It's Cleveland that's been right behind them, but now there's been a complete reversal in the division.
This is the craziest way to look at it. The Twins are closer to the White Sox than they are to the Tigers. That's how big of a lead the Tigers have in the division right now. I mean, you think of the White Sox, you think of like they just set the record for the worst season in history last year, and they're still really bad. And the Twins are closer to that, and the Twins are in second place. So, you know, nobody wants to say it's over in the first half of a baseball season, but you look at this and you think of, it's not just how good the Tigers have been, it's how mid these other 3 contenders have been. And it's like, do you really see any of these teams in their current states ripping off like 8-10 game winning streaks at the same time as the Tigers hit a big funk? It's very difficult to see. I'm stopping short of saying it.
I will say this because we did see it last year with the Tigers going the tear that they did last year when at the All-Star break, people were counting them out. Let's move on to 2025. And then they were able to put together that postseason run that they did.
I'm stopping short of saying it's like hard over, but I've stopped even really checking like Royals, Twins, and Cleveland scores. You know, like those almost feel irrelevant unless the Tigers really open the door with a long losing.
And I will say this for this Tigers team, because Minnesota opened the door for them last season. I don't see a way for this team to go in a free fall. And I know it's baseball. Anything can happen in any major sport. But with the way this team is set up, that A.J. Hinch has set it up, barring drastic injuries, I don't see this team going into a free fall, because like you alluded to earlier with Trey Sweeney coming in and hitting the home run yesterday to provide that spark for that team in that win over Cleveland, they just have so many guys that can step up and fill a void if somebody does go out.
I completely agree. This team is built in a way that almost feels like long slump proof, because they don't do anything so well that it's not sustainable, right? They pitch fairly well. The bullpen is pretty solid. The offense gets the job done. They run the bases very well. But there's nothing that if you took it away, the team would be in big trouble, you know?
Yeah.
They can go in a little bit of an offensive funk for a week and still go 3-4 or 4-3 because the starting pitching is so good. Or, like you said, Tarik Skubal can have an off day where he gives up a couple of 2-run homers, and by the 4th inning, the Tigers are already back in the lead.
Yeah.
So, you know, the organizational depth and the well-roundedness of this team sort of makes it so that you just don't see a really long losing streak coming into play. And when you're 14 games up almost in the division, that's what it's going to take to even open the door for somebody else.
And AJ Hinch has done a really, really good job this season. I know he sounds like a broken record almost every week, but he goes, we just come to the ballpark and play baseball. And I think that mindset has really rubbed off on the entire team, because they said the same things last year, but this year, with having been through what they did over the last year and a half prior to last season. I mean, they went through some dark times.
For sure.
And I think that they go back on that. So I don't see this team, even though they have built up such a sizable lead, to kind of rest and say, all right, we're good. Because also they're going to be getting tested before the All-Star break too, with Tampa Bay and Seattle coming to Comerica Park. Those teams are no slouches by any means.
Yeah, 2 super fun series, because these are the kinds of teams that the Tigers could see in a playoff series.
Yeah.
You know, if the Tigers were the 3rd division winner, these could be first-round matchups. So, yeah, really, really fun week ahead with good teams coming to Comerica
And it really
Park.
shows you where you are before going into a nice break that this team has earned.
Yeah, and the Rays just took 2 of 3 from the Tigers the last week,
Yeah.
so you know it's a chance to get back in that series. And they beat the the Mariners 2 out of 3 earlier this season. So yeah, a couple of teams where if tiebreakers did come into play later this season, these head-to-head games do matter. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's the important series coming up for the Tigers. But another important note to get to, of course, the All-Star game that's coming up next week. We'll dive into that. The Tigers have 4 All-Stars, 3 are starters. Will there be a 4th on the mound?
There should be.
There should be. But
Will there be?
Will there be is the question. We'll talk about that in a little bit.